Hello everyone, welcome to another chess video. I'm going to be showing a game in the 4NCL round 4, and I was on board 1 as usual. This time we were playing a weaker team for once, and essentially their squad was all around 2000 strength from board 1 to board 4. However, for us, all our team members are 2000 plus. We've got a couple of 2050 strength players on boards 3 and 4, and then there's myself and our board 2 are both over 2100 at least, if not even higher. So we're definitely the favourites, and the better news was that the board 3 opposing team did not turn up. He must have been having a bad internet or something, so we'd already were 1-0 up after about 10 minutes into the game, so that relieved some of the pressure. However, I personally was under a bit of stress because I had scheduled a lesson, a coaching session with one of my students, and it was going to start about an hour and 20 minutes after the beginning of this game. So I was trying to make the game finish quickly. I'm playing someone raced about 2020, I think. And I'm white in this game, 45 minutes plus 15 seconds increment. We start off with d4, d5, c4, queen's gambit declined. c3, knight f6. And yeah, bishop g5 is not the most popular move, but I do really like it. You can trade pawns first, which is considered to be some of the more popular lines. Knight f3 is also good, but I quite like this pin. Bishop e7, e3, defending the c4 pawn with my other bishop. Castles, knight f3, knight bd7, and queen c2. I used to play rook c1, but I noticed that sometimes you want to put the a1 rook to d1 instead, or even castle on the queen side. h6, I keep the pressure with bishop h4. b6 from black. And it's at this moment I choose to trade. If black takes with their knight, I'm probably going bishop g3 to pressurize the c7 pawn, preventing black also from trading any pieces on e7. So that way they'll still be a bit squashed. However, black takes with the pawn to try and keep the space advantage for white to a minimum. Bishop d3, bishop b7 from black. And here, maybe I can pressurize with rook c1 here. Maybe even knight e5 is a useful move. I wasn't sure it really achieved anything. Therefore, castling to me felt like the best move to develop the pieces and improve my position. And then rook c8. Unusual move. I used to play this a lot as black. And a few times, like FIDE Masters or stronger, used to do the move that I now did as white in this game, and it creates a lot of unpleasant tension. The computer says knight b5 is strongest, just simply attacking the a7 pawn, but I chose bishop f5. Both black knights are now being pressured by the bishops, so essentially they're somewhat pinned, and if black doesn't deal with this very soon, things can turn very ugly. So after the move c6, which I think is definitely not the best move, but it does stop knight b5, I now have knight e5, pressurizing the knight. And black's best option, surprisingly, is just to give me the exchange, knight takes e5. But that's a very engine-like move. I don't think any human does that. Therefore, rook a8 was played. It's unpleasant, but I think black has to do this. And I couldn't yet see a way to win. I improved the knight by defending it with the pawn. That way it's anchored to e5, and if black does take it, I'll take with the f-pawn, guessing my f1 rook to attack the black king, which is indeed what happens. Knight e8, very, very unpleasant for black. So that knight's had to interrupt the rooks and queen, I should say, from protecting each other. The f8 rook is now disconnected from the queen and the other rook. And maybe bishop g3 is keeping more tension on the board. But I really liked the gain of time with rook f3 here. And if black is not very careful, I'll play things like rook g3 or rook h3, and I will be able to achieve checkmate very soon. Black plays f6, attempting to get rid of my e5 pawn, which is restricting the black knight from moving forwards. I play rook a f1, and here, what would you play if black chose to capture on e5? What's the best move for white? I actually have checkmate in just 3 moves, and that is because the black knight is still not able to move up. So bishop h7, king must move because the white queen is guarding the bishop. Then rook takes f8, black can resign. If they choose to capture the rook, I'll take back and get checkmate. So sometimes just one piece which is misplaced can damage your whole position. Black is not able to achieve the freeing move, pawn takes pawn. Instead, knight c7 is chosen to connect the rooks. I come in with check, and here I didn't learn the lesson black has had to learn, which is improve your worst piece, otherwise your whole position can crumble. Here, my piece that is not being useful in the attack of the king is the knight on c3, and I want to put it on g6, which will have a triple family fork, or royal fork. So I should play knight e2 here, then knight f4, then knight g6. Knight e2 is apparently completely crushing, about plus 2.5 for white, but I missed this move. I played queen g6, trying to end the game fast. Rook a e8. I took. Black took. I again captured. And this was a bit drastic because with the trade of the pieces on f6, my bishop on h7 cannot be saved. I had thought I may have enough for the win. It turned out I was correct, but I cut it very close. So what I have achieved here is I've got 2 pawns for the bishop. I've completely demolished the safety of the black king. Throw in a check. And black chooses the correct move. I was hoping they would blunder. Queen h7, where I don't have any more checks that create a new position. If I go back to f6, it will be a draw. But here I have queen takes queen, trading the queens paradoxically when I'm behind, because I will pick up the knight on c7, and I'll be 2 pawns up and should win the game. So king g8, rook f3, attempting to go rook to g3, pinning the queen. And I was then shocked with rook e6. For some reason I'd missed this in the last 5 moves or so of my analysis. At the point I did taking on f6, giving up the bishop, all to achieve this position, and I had thought I was winning with rook f3. But rook e6 with the plan of rook g6, saving the black queen. I now finally realised I needed all my pieces to come over to attack the black king. Knight e2. Rook h6. Check. King moved. And here I couldn't really see a breakthrough. I did look at knight f4. I don't really see where the knight is going from there, apart from stopping knight to e6, not really even stopping it. Therefore I chose to try and achieve something here with rook g3. If the queen moves too far, then the queen g8 is checkmate, guarded by the rook. And if the queen moves off the 7th rank, then I will capture the black knight. So queen f7 only move. I realise I'm not making any headway, so I return to the previous position, and then play knight g3. I think around here black offered the draw, and perhaps I should have accepted it in hindsight, because I'm not totally sure if I'm winning here. The computer does say it's like +2, but essentially I have to make all the right moves. And even though I had lots of time, because I was rushing, I was aware that if I couldn't win the game in about 10 more minutes, I would offer a draw, or maybe even resign if I was losing, because I did need to get to this lesson. Knight to e6 was played from black. I don't want to trade queens. I need to have the queens on in order to pressurize and go for tactics. So queen e8. Knight g5, preventing my idea of rook f7, which would have lined up with the king and the queen. I play rook f4. I'm thinking I can still play knight f5 quite soon with an attack on the queen and rook. And also I have this idea of rook h4 if the black rook moves, and rook f7 if the knight moves. So I had loads of potential attacks. Black goes queen g8, and I did miss the strongest move on the board. Apparently rook f8 is completely winning, but instead I saw an easier way to win, at least I thought it was. With queen e7, forking bishop and king, black saves the bishop. And here, I trade queens, which looks like I should not do that because I'm worse on points. But the reason to do it is I now achieve the fork, hitting the rook and king. Then here, even though it's a bishop and a knight for a rook, so black should actually be equal-ish, it's surprisingly difficult to actually play with a bishop and knight when you don't have any other backup, like a set of rooks each. If black had a rook as well, and I had two rooks, then black probably would be ahead and may be able to win. But without the added reinforcements, my rook will often overpower the black pieces, and especially when their king is nowhere near their pawns. I played h4, forcing the knight away from controlling f7, allowing me to skewer the bishop to the pawn. I go and win one. I don't want to lose any of my pawns on a or b. I kick the bishop, then play rook b7. And here I contradict what I last said, because I do achieve a pawn trade. It will give me the winning position though with a4. And now my a pawn is a passer. Black will have to sacrifice something to make it so that I cannot make a queen. King h5. I actually decided to try and win the c pawn just to make absolutely sure there was no counter attack for black. So we trade off the c pawn, which was probably black's last attempt at anything, and my h pawn is essentially insignificant because I have the g pawn as well, which will be winning for me. So a5 and resigns. The kind of plan I would like here is if king say g3, I will play a6. Black will have to probably get rid of their bishop. And then, oddly enough, if my g-pawn was not on the board, it's very, very hard to win. It may even be a draw. But luckily, because I have the g-pawn, I don't think black really has a chance. So if knight c3, for example, I will attack. Knight goes back. You know, I can take as much time as I want to slowly come across to e5, for example. And then here I might even push e4, which is a bit of a silly move, but it would trade the pawns to go into a winning endgame here. But to be honest, that's too complicated for me. I don't really even want to bother with that. So I would actually play rook e5 in a regular game. And the reason for this is that black's king only has two moves. I may be able to achieve Zugzwang with king f2, and then march my king up. And even better, if somehow I can't win this pawn, and black does knight e4 check, I will sacrifice my rook. Then I'm easily winning. And again, if the g-pawn wasn't on the board, it would be a bit more difficult, but it would still be winning. And here, I can actually not even bother to use my king. I can play g4. If king takes g4, I push the d-pawn. And if king f6, I can actually I can waste a move, essentially, with king g3. King e5 is forced. King h4, king over, and actually this is the position I need to use my king. But if they'd let my pawn advance any more, I would have been able to win with just my two g and d pawns. So here, king h5. Black might try to get counterplay. but I do know the technique to win this. Make a queen, and all I have to do is prevent black getting to the end, which is fairly easy. For example, queen a2 is quite a nasty move. King f1, then I can even play king f3. There are other ways to win, but this is quite nice. If black makes a knight, I can easily win, but if they make a queen, which is the most logical move, I have queen g2 mate. So there'll be a ton of ways for white to win in this endgame. Anyway, I didn't have to do any of that. Fortunately, he was down very low on time and then resigned when I had that passed a-pawn, which meant I was able to finish the game on time. We managed to win 4-0. It's a very, very good result, which probably means we won't get relegated from Division 1. I have an extreme skepticism of us getting to the top place or top 2 places in the division, because there are several other teams that have extremely strong sides. But staying in Division 1 should be the goal, which we appear to have achieved. Hope you enjoyed this video, and see you next time. Bye.